Hey guys and gals, this is the Bar Exam and Chill podcast. I'm your host TJ. Today we have a hypo from the UBE. This is from the bar exam administered on July 2024, so it's a recent one. And we'll jump down into the question, see what kind of question we've got. Number 1, did the store owner and Signco enter into a contract on May 1st? Explain. Number 2, assuming that the store owner and Signco entered into a contract on May 1st, is it enforceable against the store owner even though the store owner did not sign a document reflecting the agreement? Explain. And 3, assuming that the May 1 agreement constitutes a contract that is enforceable against the store owner, is the store owner bound to accept the sign from the substitute manufacturer? Explain. Awesome. So this should tell us that we're in a contracts question. We're worried about these people, Signco, and let's see, the store owner. So, I guess we've got two main parties here. Let's jump right into the hypo and see what kind of contracts hypo we're dealing with. All right. A store owner wanted a new sign for her store. On May 1st, she met with a representative of Signco, a sign company, which she had selected on the basis of its low advertised prices, and detailed her proposed specifications for the sign. The store owner and the representative, who was authorized to enter into contracts on behalf of Signco, orally agreed that Signco would deliver to the store owner a 10-foot-long sign, for which the store owner would pay $5,000. They agreed that the sign would bear the unique name of the store, would be constructed of bent red glass, and would meet quality and design specifications stated by the store owner. They also orally agreed that the sign would be delivered to the store owner no later than May 31st. On May 6, Signco had made substantial progress in shaping the glass into the store owner's name. By May 8th, however, Signco determined that it would not be able to finish the sign on time. Without the store owner's knowledge, on May 9, Signco entered into an agreement with another company, the, quote, substitute manufacturer. The agreement required the substitute manufacturer to complete work on the sign and supply it to the store owner in accordance with the agreement between Signco and the store owner. In addition, the agreement assigned to the substitute manufacturer Signco's right to be paid under the agreement with the store owner. On May 12th, Signco and the substitute manufacturer jointly called the store owner to tell her that the substitute manufacturer would be furnishing the sign to her and that the sign would be ready for delivery by the May 31st deadline. The store owner was angry. She told Signco and the substitute manufacturer that she had contracted to buy a sign made by Signco, not by the substitute manufacturer, and that she had no intention of accepting a sign made by anyone other than Signco. On May 31st, the substitute manufacturer delivered to the store owner a sign that conformed to all of the specifications of the store owner's agreement with Signco. The store owner rejected the sign and refused to pay for it, arguing that the May 1st agreement could not be enforced against her because she had never signed a document reflecting that agreement. She also argued that even if she was bound by the May 1st agreement, its terms required that she receive a sign made by Signco, not by the substitute manufacturer. All right, so let's dive into these questions here. First of all, again, we've dealt with one contract's hypo already. And the first question always is going to be, are you in Article 2 of the UCC? This deals with goods, manufacturing and goods typically. Or are you in the common law, which would be service contracts? So here we're dealing with a sign and we've got a manufacturer. It's pretty obviously going to be under Article 2 of the UCC, the Uniform Commercial Code. And so goods are defined, by the way, as all things that are movable at the time of identification to the contract, which explicitly includes specially manufactured goods. So because the contract in question is for the sale of a physical sign, we're going to say UCC Article 2 applies. Now let's move into question number 1. Did the store owner and Signco enter into a contract on May 1st? So our issue is, did the May 1st oral contract between the store owner and Signco's authorized representative satisfy the requirements for contract formation under UCC Article 2? So our rule here is going to be that under UCC Article 2, a contract for the sale of goods may be made in any manner sufficient to show agreement including conduct by both parties, which recognizes the existence of a contract. And we go through our essential elements of a contract formation. All right, so these are your key rule elements that you have to have down for the bar exam. To have a contract, you've got to have 1, mutual assent. This is your offer and acceptance, right? Any objective manifestation of intent to be bound by the agreement's terms, you have mutual assent. Number 1, mutual assent. Number 2, consideration. A bargain for exchange of legal value, right? You've got a promise for a promise or a promise for performance. So you got number 1, mutual assent. Number 2, consideration. Number 3, definite terms. Under the UCC, the only essential term required to form a contract is the quantity of the goods. Other missing terms like price or delivery date can be filled in by the UCC gap fillers, provided the parties intended to make a contract. So this is a little bit different than the common law. Under the UCC, you just have to have the quantity of the goods. The gap fillers are typically like, instead of if you don't put a price, it has to be a reasonable price, and so on. If you don't specify time, it has to be a reasonable amount of time. And place of delivery, I believe, is usually the seller's place of business. So we've got our rule here, and you want to try and define each of those terms. You'll probably analyze under each one of these elements. Anytime you have an element 1, 2, 3, typically you would just want to throw a bolded headline, mutual assent, analyze. Do they have mutual assent? Consideration, bolded headline. Under that, analyze. Do we have consideration? So on. And definite terms. So let's apply our little rule elements to the hypo we've got. So our application is going to be that on May 1st, the store owner and Signco's authorized representative objectively manifested mutual assent to enter into agreement, right? The store owner provided detailed specifications for a sign, and the representative agreed to build and deliver it. Furthermore, there was valid consideration. Signco promised to manufacture and deliver the sign, and in exchange, the store owner promised to pay $5,000. Finally, the terms were sufficiently definite. The quantity was established, right? 1 10-foot long sign. That's the quantity. That's what you need. They've also got a price term. So the price was fixed at $5,000. The delivery date was set for no later than May 31st, and the design specifications were explicitly agreed upon. So here we've got mutual assent. There was an objective manifestation of intent to be bound by the agreement's terms. You've got consideration. You got $5,000 in exchange for 1 10-foot sign, and you've got definite terms under the UCC. So here we've got a contract formed, and so the conclusion will be yes, the store owner and Signco formed a valid contract on May 1st. Nice and easy, straightforward. Let's go into question 2. This is the contract enforceable against the store owner even though she did not sign a document? So our issue here is going to be, does the oral contract for the $5,000 sign violate the Statute of Frauds, or does it fall under an exception for specially manufactured goods? You wind up having to know all these exceptions, so it's good to practice on these bar hypos because they really like to nail not just the straightforward rules, but also all the exceptions. So here we've got the issue. Does the oral contract for the $5,000 sign violate the Statute of Frauds, or do we have this exception? Our rule here is, under the UCC Statute of Frauds, a contract for the sale of goods for the price of $500 or more is generally not enforceable unless there is a writing sufficient to indicate that a contract has been made and signed by the party against whom enforcement is sought. So our typical rule statement for the Statute of Frauds is, you have to have a writing, and it has to be signed by the party to be charged. That's typically what they say in these bar prep courses. That's the person against whom enforcement is sought. The person that has to sign. Only one party has to sign. The person that's basically being sued in any dispute. So let's get into our exception here. So, however, there's a strict exception for specially manufactured goods. An oral contract that otherwise exceeds the $500 threshold is enforceable if, number 1, the goods are to be specially manufactured for the buyer. Number 2, the goods are not suitable for sale to others in the ordinary course of the seller's business. And number 3, the seller has either made a substantial beginning of their manufacture or commitments for their procurement before a notice of repudiation is received from the buyer. So again, we've got our little test here for specially manufactured goods, and this kind of makes sense, right? If the goods are to be specially manufactured for the buyer, the goods are not suitable for sale to others in the ordinary course of the seller's business, right? They could get rid of it maybe by selling to somebody else if you can't do that. And 3, the seller has either made a substantial beginning or commitments for their procurement before notice of repudiation. You've already taken steps to specially manufacture these goods. Then the contract's going to be enforceable even if there's no writing. So our application here is, you've got the contract price for the sign. They agreed on $5,000. That exceeds the $500 threshold. So typically you're going to need a writing signed by the party to be charged, meaning the statute of frauds applies, right? And generally that requires that signed writing. Because the store owner never signed a document, the contract's going to be unenforceable unless an exception applies. So we have to identify the specially manufactured goods exception. Here, the specially manufactured goods exception is probably going to apply, right? It seems like it fits perfectly on the facts. So we analyze under those 3 steps. We pull those out and see, do the facts line up? Number 1, the sign was custom designed and constructed to meet the store owner's specific quality and design specifications. So we've got that first part of the test. Are the goods specially manufactured for the buyer? Yes, they've got these custom design and it's constructed to meet the store owner's specific quality and design specifications. So we do have specially manufactured goods for the buyer. Number 2, the sign was made of bent red glass and bore the, quote, unique name of the store. That's going to be critical, right? Because they can't sell this to anybody else. You've got a custom name. So it's got the unique name of the store, making it entirely unsuitable for the sale of any other customer in the ordinary course of Signco's business, right? If anybody walks into Signco, they can't buy this sign because it's already manufactured for this specific store. So unless the store had happened to have the exact same name, which is not going to be in the ordinary course of business, Signco's out of luck. So number 2, yes, we meet that specification. Number 3, by May 6, Signco had made substantial progress in shaping the glass into the store's name, right? This is going to come into when did the actual repudiation happen? Well, we've got in May 6, Signco had made substantial progress in shaping the glass into the store's name. And remember, this is bent red glass. This is part of that specific design specification. So the store owner did not object or attempt to repudiate the contract until May 12th. Therefore, a substantial beginning of manufacture occurred before any notice of repudiation. So here, our facts line up perfectly with the rule we've laid out for specially manufactured goods. So our conclusion is going to be that the exception applies, and yes, the contract is enforceable against the store owner despite the lack of a signed writing, because the agreement falls squarely in within this specially manufactured goods exception to the Statute of Frauds. So boom, we've answered the hell out of question 2. We move on to question 3. This one, is the store owner bound to accept the sign from the substitute manufacturer? So our issue is going to be, did Signco validly delegate its duties to manufacture the sign to the substitute manufacturer without the store owner's consent? So our rule here is that under UCC section 2-210, a party may generally assign its rights and delegate its duties under a contract to a third party without the consent of the other contracting party. I don't think, when I went into the bar exam, I didn't necessarily have all the exact statute numbers, memorized. You basically just want to be able to state all of the rules and the applicable exceptions and so on. Have them in your mind. For the big ones, you really want to focus on obviously offer and acceptance, consideration, and definite terms. You want to have stuff like that down memorized exactly for the bar exam so you can just spit those out. For the rest, hopefully you can, remember them sufficient to reproduce them in a form that's pretty much the same as the statute. on the actual exam. I don't think you need to say like necessarily UCC section 2-210. You probably just want to know that, a party may generally assign its rights and delegate its duties under a contract to a third party without the consent of the other contracting party. Generally speaking, that's going to be okay. So a duty cannot be delegated if the non-delegating party has a, quote, substantial interest in having his original promisor perform or control the acts required by the contract. So again, we're still stating a rule here. Generally speaking, it's going to be okay, but when is it not going to be okay? Well, a duty cannot be delegated if the non-delegating party has a, quote, substantial interest in having his original promisor perform or control the acts required by the contract. So this exception typically applies to personal service contracts involving unique artistic skills, reputation, or specialized expertise. For example, if you're like hiring a portrait painter or some famous artist to do like a painting of yourself, you are contracting specifically because you love that artist, right? You're not going to be happy if that artist is like, hey, I have this class full of students and I'm just going to shoo this task off to them and, slap my name on it or whatever. In that one, you can't delegate because you've got this, rule saying that you can't delegate as long as there's a substantial interest in having the original promisor. Now, obviously, in this hypo here, the store owner is going to argue, which she did in the facts, hey, I specifically wanted Signco to do this. So we're going to analyze here. Does this exception apply? Well, our rule statement here is just going to continue. This exception is not going to apply to standard manufacturing duties where the quality can be objectively measured against contract specifications. Here you've got all these, well, we'll get into the application, I guess, once we get our rule down on the page. When a valid delegation occurs, the delegating party, like Signco, remains secondarily liable if the delegate, here the substitute manufacturer, fails to perform, but the non-delegating party, the store owner, must accept conforming performance from the delegate. All right, so let's apply our rules here to the facts. We've got the store owner. They're going to argue, hey, I wanted this specific Signco to manufacture a custom glass sign. And they're going to want to say that this required unique artistic skill, and therefore the duty could not be delegated. But, the facts here kind of undermine this argument. So why is that? The store owner selected Signco, quote, this is from the facts, on the basis of its low advertised prices. So we don't have they specifically loved Signco's artistic abilities, or they made signs in a way that was super unique and they really wanted only Signco. They picked them for the price, not because of any unique reputation, artistic talent, or specialized skill. And they've got these very specific design specifications for the specially manufactured good, right? So as long as a substitute manufacturer hit all of those specific design specifications here, it doesn't really seem like she's contracting them because specifically she needs Signco to complete it. She just wants a good price and those special specifications to be met. So the contract was governed by, quality and design specifications stated by the store owner. Because the substitute manufacturer delivered a sign on May 31st that exactly conformed to all of these specifications, that's given on our facts, it, quote, conformed to all of the specifications. The task here was clearly an objective, measurable manufacturing duty rather than a subjective, unique personal service, done by some artist that she was contracting for. So because the store owner did not have a legally recognized substantial interest in having specifically Signco, specifically bend the glass, the delegation was probably valid here, right? Consequently, the assignment of the right to receive the $5,000 payment was also going to be seen as valid. So because the delegation was proper and the substitute manufacturer tendered perfectly conforming goods by the agreed upon deadline, the store owner's refusal to accept the sign constitutes a breach of the contract. So our conclusion here is going to be, yes, the store owner is bound to accept the sign from the substitute manufacturer because Signco's duties were validly delegable and the substitute manufacturer tendered conforming goods by the deadline. Boom! straightforward application of our rules and exceptions. We got some practice on the specially manufactured good exceptions, and we talked about delegation of duties. This should be helpful going forward. Good luck to everybody studying, and happy studying.